Good evening and welcome to tonight's show. I'm your host, Tina Dawson, the owner of True Blue Designs, and it's truly an honor to be before you this evening. Please like and share and let everyone know that we are on the air. We are streaming simultaneously on our Facebook page and on our new True Blue Designs Facebook page at True Blue Designs Presents the Inside Perspective. I want to also invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at True Blue Designs Presents the Inside Perspective and press the notification bell so that you can be alerted when new content becomes available. Now, tonight's guest comes to us all the way from Freeport, Grand Bahama, Bahamas. Mr. Averell Mortimer is a travelpreneur with Intelli Travel, headquartered in Delray Beach, Florida. He is here to share his life's journey and travel destination tips and advice. So if you're looking to travel this month or in the new year, you will want to tune in to this show. So please like and share, family and friends, and let everybody know that we are on the air. And help me give a warm welcome to tonight's guest, Mr. Averell Mortimer. Uh-oh. Wait a minute. There we go. How are you this evening?
I am good today, and thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for saying yes. We had a good conversation before we went live, but we're going to say that to after the show. We're going to finish it. So we're going to start off by allowing you to tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
I was born in Nassau, Bahamas, sometime around the mid-1900s. I attended high school in Nassau, St. Augustine's College.
Mm-hmm.
I matriculated to Bethune-Cookman College at age 16.
Wow.
In 1971, I graduated in 1975 with a bachelor's degree in business administration with emphasis in economics and accounts. After graduation, I joined the staff of 8 Mile Rock High School at age 19. I had 12 students who were older than I was. I am the oldest son of Bernard and Cynthia Mortimer. I am the grandson of Averell J. Mortimer, the founder of Best Ever Candy Company, better known as Mortimer's Candy Kitchen. The company is about 100 years old, and it's still viable, and its mint, so its candy is still very famous. I just retired from education during Dorian, or post-Dorian, and I joined IntelliTravel shortly thereafter, and I used the COVID-19 pandemic to do all of my travel training. I am top level certified with most of the major cruise lines, airlines, and several other companies that deal specifically with things like hotels, cars, and so on. I am a full service travel agency. I'm also in the concession business, I guess due to my grandfather. Most of his children are entrepreneurs, so I had it in me.
Yeah.
Since I was in the travel industry, I said I'm a travelpreneur.
That's right. Yeah, I looked it up. Yeah. So you have been exposed to entrepreneurship since birth. So let's just discuss a little bit of the journey and talk a little bit more about your family business and the concession.
But the most famous would be what is now called Mortimer's Candy Kitchen. They became famous for its mints, its peanuts, and its snow cone. In Nassau, we call it snowballs.
Oh.
Now, what was interesting about the mints, being a college student and all of that, I indicated that to my grandfather, hey, why don't we start wrapping these mints in cellophane? Because they wrapped them in wax paper.
Mm.
And there was a customer outside and said, don't do that, because that's the only mint you could eat in church. It doesn't make any noise when you open it.
That's true.
So, but my father actually never had a job in his life. He sold candies from the factory. Then he became a concessionaire. And at some point in his life, he was the concessionaire for the National Stadium in the Bahamas. So I had to work with him. And as I got older, I learned to do the things myself. When I came to Grand Bahama, I brought those skills with me. I do primarily events. I now supply people who are doing events for those things. And it's the same products, the candy, the snow cone, the popcorn, and the cotton candy, along with their supplies.
Okay.
So
that is awesome.
I did that while I was teaching, because I had to earn extra money to stay in the profession that I really liked.
You had to earn extra money to stay in the profession.
Teaching was not a lucrative.
It still isn't here in the U.S. Teachers will tell you that. In your bio, you talked about the Us Two Grand Bahamas. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I became part. Us Two is a prostate cancer support group, and because my fraternity promotes or helps as an initiative, I think American Cancer Society in Grand Bahama, we decided, since that we are men, why not become affiliated with a group that deals with the cancer in men. So I became the fraternity's representative on Us Two. We're part of Us Two International, and they were started, I think, in the 90s. And we do all of our work with men, specifically with prostate, and all of our services to the men are free of charge. Okay. Absolutely free. During my tenure, the last screening in 2018, we screened over 800 men. That's the equivalent of over $200,000 if it was done privately, and it was done to men free of charge. All of our volunteers, all of our medical personnel volunteers. That includes the nurses, the phlebotomists, and the doctors. Okay. And we keep track of the men. So if we see there's a jump in their PSA, we call them in for secondary testing and so on and so forth. And if a biopsy is required, they only charge the cost of the material, which are the needles, which is $50. The doctor provides the services free. Wow. And the hospital provides the theater free.
So is this a program that's just in the Grand Bahamas, or
it's worldwide?
It's worldwide. Okay, because I had never heard of it.
It's Us Two International. I think it's headquartered in Ohio, I think. And there's several spin-off groups. I think one is now called Zero Prostate. Okay. They have merged with Us Two. And I became chapter leader in 2017. That tenure of office should have been 2 years, but because of the pandemic, they kept me on, and I demitted office on the 29th of September this year. Okay.
And just for the audience, what fraternity are you a member of?
The Great Phi Beta Sigma fraternity.
All right. I knew, but when you said fraternity, I'm like, we didn't make that clear which fraternity it's only one, but.
To add to that, I can say that I'm the first Sigma in my family.
Yeah. Wow.
And we now have over 10.
Wow. Yeah, you've been recruiting.
It's what they saw.
Yeah, say that again, because that is so true.
It's what they saw in the Sigma. I saw a T-shirt the other day. I wanted to get a copy of that. It says, "My husband is not perfect, but he's a Sigma, and that's good enough for me."
Yeah, we will have to make a shirt on that one. Also, in your bio, you talked about being the principal researcher and author of the Career Path for Public School Teachers. It's a document that's currently being used by the Bahamas Ministry of Education. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, in education, I became the chairman of the branch slash area vice president for Grandmom in the Northern Bahamas. What is interesting about that was when I decided to run for office, my opponent dropped out. And I served for 12 years, that's over 4 consecutive terms, without being opposed in any election. There were some turbulent times and there were some good times. During my tenure, we found out that the only way for a teacher to earn a particularly decent salary was to be promoted to administration. And we also knew that many good teachers made lousy administrators. Right. So we needed to find a way to keep good teachers in the classroom. So I did some research through many jurisdictions throughout the world. And a particular thing came to mind was that you need to catch teachers doing good. And I liked that, and I looked into it. So I said, okay, let's see if we could go along the lines of putting a track where you enter the system, and then after that you can apply to be promoted to a senior teacher and then to a master teacher. In that document, I pegged the master teacher's salary to that of the vice principal of a high school. Okay. So a classroom teacher can remain in the classroom and earn a relatively okay salary. The other thing that we wanted to do away with was the assessment of teachers was very, very subjective and usually negative, what you didn't do. Right. Or what you could do better. So the assessment documents in the career path, what we call the tracking system, included items that was what we... He dropped. He'll be right back. Tonight we are interviewing Mr. Averell Mortimer, and he is a travelpreneur with Intelli Travel headquarters in Delray Beach, Florida. I think he's going to be back. Hold on just a second. Okay, we got you. As I mentioned earlier, these things started to happen. But again, you had many detractors for that system because it was a change. It was abnormal, I guess, for people to do that. But we eventually got it through and it was accepted by government. And then, as with governments, they attempted to put their spin on it. The whole problem was we still have it in place and you can still apply to be a senior teacher or a master teacher. The master teacher technically became a teacher's teacher. Okay. So, for example, if a school was having difficulty in math, the master math teacher would go to that school and try to upgrade or to solve the problem they were having. And that would return to its original place of employment. So they also became teacher mentors, especially with new teachers. As a matter of fact, that's a program my wife developed. She is a doctor in education, and she developed a mentoring program for teachers. Preferably, it should have been using master teachers because they should have been, again, master of their craft. Right. So the system is currently under revision. Okay. And hopefully they will get it better together. Right. Yeah. Well, that was great that you all had put that in place to help them, because we were talking earlier about how teachers are very underpaid according to the job that they have to do.
And then teachers' responsibilities today is not like when we were in school. They have to worry about so many different things now than compared to when we were in school. And a lot of the teachers that I know of, they just feel that the administration doesn't really totally support them. My heart goes out to them, and I keep them in prayer because they really go through a lot. And now their lives are being threatened physically and verbally. And, they're just not getting paid for that. And
Yeah, that's correct.
yeah.
But like I said, those administrators and those principals, they may have been good classroom teachers.
Right.
Then they go into administration and still think they're teaching in the classroom. So they treat their staff as a classroom student.
Yeah, as a student. Yeah, I've seen that. Mm-hmm.
I irritated, I think, the prime minister at one point in time. I said, why is it that you need a teacher to be principal of a school? And they said, well, why not? I said, the minister of health, the minister of finance isn't an accountant.
Mm.
So, you simply need somebody, a good person to run a school.
Right.
Because they have a person responsible for the curriculum, and then they have another person responsible for the administration. The principal just coordinates both. I said, retired banker could do that.
Yeah.
But some jurisdictions, they have that, where a retired manager of a bank became principal of a school.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were progressive in the banking system. So,
right.
But we have this deal that you must be a teacher.
Right. Yeah. And you're right when you're saying, everybody is not built to lead. And some people are built to serve. And you got to have the heart of the people, and you have to have the vision to be able to, carry whatever the goal is forward. But the school systems, near and far, that it's just not the same as it used to be, and they have to have, you know, innovative vision is what I'm trying to say, to be able to tackle some of the challenges that they have now. And the teachers are just. I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if you get our news, but I saw yesterday on the news where there was a particular county here, and all of the teachers went to the board meeting, and they were just saying enough is enough. They just all band together at that from this particular school, and they went to a board meeting, and they were like, "This is what we're going. This is what our challenges are, and this is what we're facing every day." And the school system has to do something. And a lot of times the people that are in the superintendent and in the top layers, they're so far removed from it that they really don't understand or really don't get the anxiety and the frustration that these teachers have. And it's these kids that are not allowing them to teach because they have to deal with behavior.
We have a system in the Bahamas, for example, the nurses and policemen, they can retire after 25 years because it's called a high stress job. I told someone that we need to put teachers on that level now.
Yeah.
So,
today's teachers, because it is
very high stress.
Yeah, very high stressful. So let's talk about what inspired you to become a travelpreneur. Let's talk about your journey to making that decision.
Well, I've traveled to the U.S., many of the states, Canada, Central America, the UK, and the Caribbean, as well as some islands in the Bahamas. And I was speaking with an associate, and we were talking about the economy. He said, you realize that the travel industry is an $8 trillion industry?
Wow, $8 trillion.
And then I had another friend, she told me that, I want to become part of IntelliTravel, and I would wish you to come along with me. So I did my research. It's a young company, I think about 30 years old. and it was a progressive company. In 30 years, they now have 75,000 independent travel advisors, and they're partners with majority of persons in the cruise and travel and hotel and all sorts of other industries. So we are able to do that in that. So I joined, and then of course, as I mentioned in our off-camera conversation, the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So instead of just racing away, I did that. I took that opportunity to do all of my training. I am now top level certified with all the major cruise lines, a couple of the airlines, hotels. Matter of fact, I just finished my gold tier training with Virgin Voyages. I'm still in progress with Disney Cruise Lines and the Disney products. So I deem myself to be adequately or more than adequately qualified as a travel agent. And the cruise and travel business is picking up.
Yeah.
And people are traveling. I had a notice from a cruise line. They were offering World Cruise, I think 85 stops. It took 2 or 3 months. And the price tag was $50,000 per person. And the ship had 1,500 cabins, double occupancy. I got an email in 10 days. They told me the cruise was sold out.
Wow. Really?
I said, people really got an itch to move.
Yeah. But we were locked down for so long. So
You can even look at the Bahamas. I'm a member of the Bahama Chamber of Commerce also. And I made some calls to persons in South Florida. And the Bahamas technically is worth $12 billion to the South Florida economy. So we travel. You know, half of that might be for medical purposes. The other half is travel, tourism, and business. And no matter where you go in the world, I mean, in Winnipeg, Canada, I met a couple of Bahamians.
You're everywhere.
I met a couple of Bahamians in Brighton, England. Most people never heard of that place.
No, I haven't.
You know, so those that what kept me interested. Besides, I mean, I'm still in the concession business, but the training and all of that, you know, keep your mind active. It excites me to be able to do it, and especially to have someone call you and say, I want to do this, and you can get them a package within their budget. Because that's the first thing I ask them, especially for cruises. Have you ever cruised before? What is your budget? And I said, but you know, the cruise line is about $800. They said, oh, that's expensive. I said, no, but you got to factor in if you had to use a hotel, if you had to buy your own food, you know, and transportation to these different places. So then it works out very little per day compared to if you did that individually.
Right.
You know, and then to hear them say, well, okay, and that's good, and or when they come back and say they had a good time, or somebody wanted to go somewhere, and I say, I really don't think that's for you. That's not a family destination. You know, they heard about the place, but I said, that's not a family, that's a destination. I said, in some of those places, you have what they call clothing optional beaches.
I know what you're talking about.
Right? So, you know, and they were, it's a family thing. I said, it's not, you know, but they understand and they appreciate you being honest. And, you know, I, in my teaching, I used to say, you know, in marketing, I tell the student, the sales clerk will tell you what you want to hear. And I say, use me as an example. At that time, I was about 350 pounds. I said, I would ask the lady how I would look in a thong, and she'd say, very good. She just wants to sell.
Right.
You see, so you have to be very skeptical of that. You know, you could imagine me sending a family somewhere where clothing is optional.
Yeah, you wouldn't hear the end of that one.
Right. You know, I mean, we have several places that are, I mean, like Virgin Voyages, adult only.
Virgin voyages.
Yeah, there are no children on that ship. In order to cruise with your family, you must be 18.
Okay.
In order to buy a ticket, you must be 21.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's a cruise line that's trying to be environmentally friendly.
Okay.
They've done away with the buffet
Really?
to eliminate waste.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they have over 20 restaurants on the ship.
Okay.
So you can choose, in a week, you can choose at least 8 or 9 of them.
Yeah.
So, and then they have other cruises to destinations. I just became affiliated with Temptation Cruises. And
Okay.
the name should tell you
Yeah.
that's not a family.
That's not a family friendly cruise. Let me ask you this: have you noticed it? Have you noticed that majority or a lot of the cruise lines are doing away with the buffet and having more restaurants on the cruises? Is that what's happening now? Because I've seen mainly Royal Caribbean when they come out with a new cruise ship. A lot of them have the restaurants now on there. Is that? I mean, I used to love the
Well, a
buffet.
lot of them are adding what they call specialty restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll just use an example Chef Prudhomme restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
but you have
Mm-hmm.
to pay to go in there.
Oh, okay. Even though you're on the
Yeah,
cruise, you
all
still
the
have.
restaurants on cruise ships are not free.
Okay, I got you.
So if you
I
go
got
to a steakhouse, you're gonna pay. I mean, the fee wouldn't be the same as you going to an actual restaurant.
you. Right.
There's a fee. Now there's some cruise ships that your entire setup is free of charge,
Right.
or you can buy a package prior to your sailing. But I ask them to buy it prior to, because on the business side, if they buy it on a ship, I don't get the commission.
Okay, gotcha.
And then of course, many ships have what they call a drink package,
Okay.
which is cheaper than, especially if you like top shelf stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have a package that would suffice for you for the week or the 10 days or the 2 weeks. My family had a cruise a couple of years ago from London to New York. And the story goes, I wasn't on it, that they had a helicopter came on board the ship to replenish the bar because they had too many Mortimers on it.
They had to replenish the liquor.
Give new meaning to drink Canada Dry.
Yeah, right, right.
But
So
those
if
are things that a passenger would want to look into
right,
if they have the different packages. And especially now, unless you know the destination and you can contact somebody there, or the tour operator has a website that you can go on, the ships have what they call arranged tours
okay.
that you can purchase on the ship. Now,
Mm-hmm.
many destinations, especially in the Caribbean, most of the vendors there offer a website
Mm.
that you can go on, and then you can get a better perspective. Or if you know somebody who is from there or visited that destination, and speak with them.
Okay.
You know, even though, for example, everybody's hearing these negative things about Haiti, for example,
Mm-hmm.
the strife and the gang wars and all that. But there's a cruise ship destination in Haiti, and
Okay.
it hasn't been closed. It's
Mm.
called Labadee, Haiti. And that's a cruise destination. And, of course, it's owned by one of the cruise lines,
Right.
and those sorts of things. So sometimes you just need to speak with somebody to say,
Right.
it's okay to go there.
Yeah,
And yeah,
because I didn't realize that, when you look at different things on the television, especially like Africa, that's just someplace that, in my younger years, I just never wanted to go to because of what was being projected through the television, right? Because they pick and choose what they want to project.
gorillas and wild animals.
Yeah, right. And then, but I've talked to some people that actually went on vacation in Africa, and they were saying that it is beautiful, and it just depends on where you go, and what you do that you don't see. But they understood what I was saying, that this is all you see on TV, right?
Right.
So
They have modern cities,
you're
modern
right,
countries.
yeah. But you
You
wouldn't
know,
think so when you look at, from what the TV is projecting. You wouldn't think that there were modern cities in Africa. I mean, now I know, but back
it's
then I
like, yeah, it's like the Bahamas. We have 700 islands and over 1,000 keys and rocks. We occupy 100,000 square miles.
Okay, say that again. You have what now?
We have over
Seven.
700 islands, 1,000 keys and rocks.
Wow.
We have about 35 islands that are populated.
Mm-hmm.
So a tourist coming to Grand Bahama will experience something different than going to Nassau or Abaco or Eleuthera or Long Island or San Salvador. They're
Mm-hmm.
technically different destinations, but you probably only heard of Nassau.
That's all. Yeah, you're right.
There's a Club Med in San Salvador.
Wow. Yeah, I've only heard of Nassau.
Yeah, and then, of course, San Salvador is where the infamous Columbus was supposedly landed his first place in the Western world.
Okay.
So, but there are different destinations even within the country.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Texas is different from Arkansas.
Right.
You know, um, I was shocked to find I was able to eat crab cakes in South Carolina.
Yeah.
You know, that's a seafood. And then there's a
Yeah.
famous shellfish here that we like in the Bahamas. We call it Wilkes.
Mm-hmm.
I found that in Brighton, England.
Really?
So there are different places with different venue, even though it's one country.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you with Africa. Most people think it's primitive, and it's not.
Right.
You know, Ghana, Nigeria, all of those are
Mm-hmm.
very well developed.
Yeah, but like I said, that's not the side that the television shows. So you have to get it. It's good to get a good travel agent so that they can give you a package so that you can visit these places and see for yourself the richness of the different countries. So yeah. So let me ask you
It's no fault in saying I don't know. I'll get back to you, and then you go and you find somebody who knows about it.
right,
In
right,
my company, I have 75,000 agents I could contact
yeah,
worldwide. So what's kicking in Jamaica, what's kicking in the UK,
right.
those sorts of things. So most people, they will give you a story, but you don't want to hear that story. You want the truth.
Yeah, that's true. And it's good to be resourceful. So when someone is looking for a travel advisor, what are 6 qualities, or what should the individual look for in a good travel advisor?
Well, one is the gift of gab. That's what they should be able to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Honesty. I call it being upfront. As I said earlier, that destination isn't for you or your
Right.
family. You know. So the other one would be knowledge
Mm-hmm.
of various aspects of the travel industry, and of course, being certified in certain areas of the travel industry. I am a member of CLEAR, which is the Cruise Line Industry Association.
Okay.
Uh, I'm about to become fully qualified as a certified cruise counselor
Okay.
shortly. All I need to do now is go take this cruise I've been planning, and then I'm fully certified. So I can speak of that experience from that perspective. I think early in 2023, I'll become a member of the American Society of Travel Agents. I think that's called ASTA.
Mm-hmm.
And those are designations that people really look at. So you would want your travel agents to have those. I mean, a travel advisor should have those particular type of quality. And you speak in a tone that the persons feel comfortable speaking with you.
Right.
You know, It's not all about the sale all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And some persons it's all about the sale, and not knowing that if you tell somebody, why don't you wait until June to go to Alaska instead of August or September? Because it's summertime.
Right.
August, September in Alaska is cold.
Mm-hmm.
In Alaska, the summer temperature, high temperature be around 60, 70.
Mm-hmm.
In Bahamas, that's cold.
Right.
But, if I'm going to send a Bahamian to Alaska, why would I want to send them in August or September? You know? So those are some of the things you would want, and then find out, a lot of people believe that they should travel when everybody else is traveling, but that's what they call the high season.
Right.
Prices are higher.
Yeah.
And if you want to plan a cruise, many cruise lines now, you could book a cruise in 2024. But as you get nearer to that date, the prices go up.
Mm.
Likewise with an airline. The closer you get to your flight date, those prices go up.
Do you ever see where they may be running some last minute sale or deals?
Some offer that if they're about to, and they're not, if an airline or cruise ship has not sold the ship out,
Okay.
then they have maybe 50 rooms. They would say, okay, this is a spot deal.
Okay.
You can get this deal for so on and so forth. And normally when I get those sort of things, I send it out to my email list.
Okay.
And they can get back to me if they wish or not. But
Right.
a lot of them, for example, you need to book by December 9th.
Mm-hmm.
Any person is not prepared to do that.
Right.
But if they speak with me, I let them know. The cruise, if you book for 2024 and you have to do by the 9th, the cruise line has a payment plan. They will say, okay, we need $100 deposit and you can pay us in the next 3 months, next 6 months, so on and so forth.
But at least the price is locked in.
Once you lock that price, that's it.
Yeah.
I just doing a booking yesterday. A person contacted me on Monday. I gave him a set of prices. Yesterday, I ran and checked again. Those prices went up by $200 a person.
Wow.
Because he wants to travel on the 17th of December.
That's Christmas.
Everybody travels in December.
Yeah.
In the United States, for example, the biggest travel day is Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Bahamas got into y'all Thanksgiving because we go over there to catch the Thanksgiving sales.
Right.
And then you have Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's making transition. All of the colleges are beginning to shut down for the winter break.
Okay.
That's more travel.
Mm-hmm.
So the airlines, why not? You want a seat, you'll pay the price.
Right.
Had you done that 2 months ago, you'd have been good.
Well, it pays to book early.
Yes, and I learned through my training that vacations are mentally necessary. You need to break the monotony in your life. So if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over, you get into a rut. You get irritable. So you go on a vacation where you could just hang loose, and that's why a lot of people go to the Trinidad Carnival.
I've never been, but I heard it's absolutely beautiful.
It's where ordinary, sensible people do crazy things and don't think about it.
And don't think about it.
And then they finish and then they go back home.
Right. They leave it in Trinidad.
All of that stress is off them.
Mm-hmm.
We have instituted a carnival in the Bahamas too, but we are a conservative society, so I don't know how that works. But Trinidad is the number one, and then the ultimate would be Rio.
Rio, yeah.
But you have doctors, lawyers, and they dress up in the costume and they just hang loose.
Yeah.
So it's beneficial mentally to most persons. So that's another thing. If you want relaxation, Las Vegas ain't the place.
It's true.
So you need a place where There are places, if you don't want to go on a big cruise ship, you could take a river cruise. The
Mhm.
rivers of Florida, the Mississippi, you know, those are small ships. They're relaxing ships.
Right. Just to get away and clear your mind.
Do something.
Yeah. Um, so let's talk about some more travel tips and advice. What have you seen um, as the top destination places that people are requesting or people are going to? And I know it's the end of the year, so I'm sure. But what have you seen as the top? Say in 2022, what was the top destination places that you've seen that people wanted to go?
Surprisingly, I was surprised when found out Barcelona, Spain
Spain.
was a place. Cancun, Mexico, and a place somewhere in South Africa called Cape Town.
Yeah, I've heard of Cape Town. Okay.
That's some of the top places that people are traveling this year.
Wow. Spain, Cancun, and Cape Town, Africa.
Mm.
There's a lot of, I've run into quite a few people that when they told me this year that they were going on vacation, it wasn't in the 50 states. I've had people have gone to Europe, England, Italy. People are really getting out there to see different parts of the world they haven't seen before. So,
Well, I had an interesting event when I visited Brighton. Um, the Bahamas is part of the British Commonwealth.
mhm.
Britain was then a part of the European Union. So I put one and one together, two. So I thought the ferry over to France. The immigration people said, don't work like that. Bahamas is not part of the EU. So you don't have that visa free or that travel, no. So, they were nice about it. They kept me there until the next ferry went by.
Right.
You got to at least stamp my passport. They said, nope.
Nope.
But I was I tried it, because
Right.
the only corners that England is part of the EU and the Bahamas is part of the UK, then
They said nope. Put you on the next ferry.
well, I've been there, but I have no proof.
Right. What about Israel? I heard of some churches um, taking trips to Israel.
Yeah, those are very good tours, faith-based, and they now have them segregated into, for example, you could have tours related to Catholic Church,
Mm-hmm.
the Anglican Church, or what you would call the Episcopal Church,
Mm-hmm.
the Protestant Church. So they have these places. For example, the Protestants would have been Scotland. They have tours. I'm an agent for that major company called Educator-Turned-Travel Services, and they're very cost effective. You have a week, let's say, in the Holy Land for just over $4,000, and that includes airfare from New York.
Wow, that's pretty good.
And for example, let's say Tina wanted to organize a Holy Land trip. For every 10 persons you put on that trip, you get a free ticket.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So you can either give it away or use it yourself, or then you could tell your significant other, oh, you could come with me now.
So like I said, it's been a lot of people traveling, out of the US. And I think that when we were locked down for those year and a half, I think it was, it just made people reflect and say that if I can make it out of this, I'm going to travel, I'm going to get away. And I know a lot of people, once the bans were lifted, they really started traveling and getting out and seeing different things. Let's see.
I still tell people, don't let your guard down, though, because it's not over. Because China is going through some mini lockdowns now.
Yeah, they sure are.
Don't let your guard down, especially if you have what they call predisposed risks.
Mm-hmm.
You're over 55.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there are certain places that if I go to a crowded place today, I will wear a mask.
Right.
You know, a certain
Yeah.
stores I go into, I wear a mask.
Right. You still have to be cautious.
Yes.
You do. So
And this is the cold and flu season.
right, we're entering into it. Matter of fact, we're probably already in it. Let me ask you this: what are some places that people overlook that are really worth visiting?
Japan,
Japan.
not Tokyo.
Okay.
Toronto, Canada is another one. South Korea, not Seoul.
Okay.
Uh, this is very interesting. People raise their eyebrows. Uh, Greenpoint, Brooklyn.
Greenpoint, Brooklyn. What's in
Yeah.
Greenpoint?
You know Brooklyn, right?
I've heard of it.
Brooklyn, New York.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's a place there called Greenpoint. It's a nice destination. Most
Green
people never heard of it.
Greenpoint. Okay, I'm gonna check that one out.
Adelaide in Australia
Mm.
and the Emerald Coast of Florida.
The Emerald Coast of Florida.
Yes. Most
Okay.
people don't know where that is.
No, I've heard of the Keys.
But you know about Florida.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Gold Coast, you have the Emerald Coast. Different sides of Florida.
Right.
Especially the Gulf Coast side of
Mm-hmm.
Florida. Because everybody knows the eastern side of Florida, like Daytona Beach, New Smyrna Beach, Miami Beach, you know. Daytona Beach, when I was at Bethune, kind of surprised me because we don't have those kind of beaches in the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
In Daytona Beach, you could drive your car on the beach.
Really?
Yes, you cannot do that in the Bahamas. The sand is too soft.
I haven't been to a beach where you can do that either. So I'm shocked about that.
And Daytona Beach the beach is 21 miles long.
Wow.
You could drive a car on the beach. That's where they used to have the first races.
Mm-hmm.
Drive along that beach.
That's right. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have to check into that Brooklyn, New York.
Greenpoint.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, cause I have a family member that lives in New York, so I'm gonna have to give her a call about that one. Okay, so that was a good list for people to remember. To some new destinations that people may not have been thinking about to try. So, what are 5 things that people should currently know about the travel industry?
Well, it's an $8 trillion industry. It provides about 10% of the world's occupation or jobs.
Mm.
It has been subdivided into so many sectors now with the travel. So you have large destinations, small destinations. You have what they call adventure trips now, where you decide that you want to go spend some time in the jungle or some other area, or you want to go to a remote place where there are not very many people. I mean, well, I can use the Bahamas as an example. We have places, some keys that you could go spend a day on, and you would not see another human being.
Really?
So, and then you could go to Nassau or Grand Bahama and enjoy the nightlife if you wish.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just where, about the things that you wish to do, there's
Mm-hmm.
always a place to go and do that. And that's one of the important things about the travel industry. And within the next 2 decades, they expect the travel industry to grow to $12 trillion
12 trillion.
in revenue.
Wow.
So you'll notice that all of the cruise lines are now building bigger and better ships.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually floating cities now.
Yeah.
I said, what was the common term? It's so big now they got up their own zip code.
Yeah, you're right. I've seen some of the newer ships that are coming out, and yeah, they're like cities on
And
water.
to be honest with you, I would not want to go onto a ship that holds 5,000 people.
Right.
I'm not into crowds.
Okay.
That's just me. Uh, the U.S. by far is the heaviest traveling public we have, the
Mm-hmm.
travel industry. And and what market we're looking at now is China.
Mm-hmm.
They estimate that by 2027, China will have 64 million new families traveling,
64 million.
new travelers, new families traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And normally, persons in that region or in Europe, when they go on a vacation, it's a minimum of 2 weeks.
Okay. How far does it take to get from like the United States to China?
Well, it depends on the route you take. It could be
Okay.
anywhere from 12 to 15 to 18 hours.
Okay.
And that's not connections, that's just flying.
Wow.
There are some, for example, to go to India, you could be in an aircraft for 18 hours in the air.
And
Now,
I and I've seen those new aircrafts where it has like you can purchase. Well, I think the whole aircraft may be like that, but you can probably reserve a certain area where you have. I think they're called pods.
well, most of the Asian airlines,
Uh huh.
as far as quality of service goes, they're top notch.
Mm,
Now, most US based airlines is about how many persons they can get on that plane.
right.
Uh, they had a joke the other day that they couldn't get this lady to move out of first class because they have wider seats, leather seats,
Mm-hmm.
and for whatever they couldn't get her to go back into economy. So the pilot came over and whispered in her ear, and she just jumped up and ran to economy. Stewardess asked him, "Say, what did you tell her?" I told her that first class don't go to London.
Oh my goodness.
But these are trends that we're looking at, the emerging markets of people who are traveling. Uh, more well, Caribbean people always travel. U.S. citizens always travel, and Canadian citizens travel. Uh, European citizens normally will go between countries in Europe,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're traveling to places. For example, there's a charter plane that comes to Club Med from Europe in San Salvador and the Bahamas,
Mm-hmm.
and they come there for a minimum of 2 weeks. So they don't have the big city life there. They have all of the nice beaches, all the seafood they can eat, and
Mm-hmm.
then of course the in-house entertainment that they would provide. So they are beginning to explore those places. And of course, you have the persons who want to travel to those places like New York and Miami and Las Vegas and so on. But you have the person that they just want to go on a vacation. They want to relax, get away from the hub. So we're looking at the European market, looking at the Asian market. And most of them, especially the Asian market like India and places like that, they have to really, really plan their trips. For example, from the Bahamas to India might be about $5,000 or more, and that's just flying.
I gotta hook up my cord. Go ahead. Keep.
Okay. No, I'm just saying. So from some places it's just very, very expensive, and they need to plan. And those are the places that who would really need advice on how to travel.
Okay, sorry about that. I thought I had my cord hooked up to my computer, and I was like,
Oh, stuff happens.
yeah, it does. Well,
Yeah.
let me ask you this. We're almost at the end of the show, but what are some main things that you would like the viewers to take away from your interview this evening?
That if you want to travel, try to get someone that's qualified in the industry, somebody that you feel comfortable with. Normally, somebody would say, choose me, but some persons may not care for my candor.
So you have to go with someone you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, if need be, you can contact me. And then look into the ideas provided for the various vacation places that you would wish to go. And lastly, as I said before, remember that vacations are mentally important.
Yeah.
Especially post-COVID, just to get away, just to relax.
Yeah, they are. They're very important.
And sometimes you just don't need to follow the hype. Just
right.
If you want to relax, one of the more relaxing places I've been was Manitoba in Canada. Literally nothing to do.
Right. You know what? Sometimes I've noticed that the older that I get, those type of days and those type of vacations are they're just the thing that's for me, to do little of nothing, because you run Monday through Friday. So you're constantly busy. And I don't want to go on vacation where I have to be constantly busy unless I plan it out. And then that way I can kind of take my life and, slow it down before I go on a vacation like that. But I just really like to rest and relax.
Sometimes you need to try things, I went to a conference in England, and it cost about $5,000-6,000 to be there, just to be to the conference. That's not the hotel.
Wow.
And we were walking around. These people are they want to know where the nearest McDonald's or the KFC. I said, you spent $5,000 to buy Kentucky. Try some of the local food.
That's right.
Experiment. The worst that can happen is you might die, but you can die anyway.
Yeah.
So try it. I, for example, in England, it's either lamb and potatoes. You got lots of that, and they cook lamb any sort of. I had lamb for breakfast.
Wow.
And you just try it.
Yeah.
And they wanted to go. I said, no, not me. I'll try anything once.
Yeah. And I try to do that when I go on vacation, is to try, even if I go to a different city, I want to eat at a place that's not in Georgia or something, or a chain. If I do a chain, I want to do something that's not here in Georgia, so I can say I've experienced, a local restaurant or the taste of the area. So yes. I don't want the same thing that I get here. I just recently went to a conference in Greenville, South Carolina. And after the conference was over, I asked the bellman, and I was like, okay, what is good in the area? And he named a couple of things that I've heard of, and then he kept going. I said, okay, we're going to try something that I can't get here. and the restaurant was delicious. It gave you so much food, and it was just delicious. So yeah, if you're gonna go on vacation, I'm not gonna spend, like you said, I'm not gonna spend $5,000 and eat at Burger King.
Right. I don't know. I don't remember which state it was, but it was somewhere in the Appalachian Mountains, and there was mountain oysters on the menu. And
Mountain oysters.
mountain oysters.
I know what that is.
I found out halfway through the meal. I should not have asked what was it, but I mean, up until that point, I was comfortable eating it. You know.
At least you had an open mind.
So I had a friend from Texas, and I never thought of it. I said, "Y'all guys eat rattlesnakes."
Mm.
He said, "But you eat conch."
Yeah.
Conch is a slimy type sea snake.
Yeah,
and it hit me that, hey, look, what's good for them?
Yeah.
Good for us. I can't despise them for
Right.
eating what they eat, but that's just what it is.
Right.
In South Africa, you could get rat on a stick.
Right.
But our concept of what a rat is,
right.
And these are rats that hang out in the rice fields and all of that. They're very clean. We just can't fathom eating a rat.
Right. Yeah. Again, it's just that the television and the images that have projected have kind of shaped our mind, and I think it's kind of limited our mind on different things, what it should or should not be. And like you said, we need to travel and we need to get out and try new things.
And then
just say you just try once.
And you should plan ahead.
Yeah.
If you want to go on a vacation in 2023, it's almost too late.
Right.
But if you want to take a family to it 2024, fine. You can begin doing that now. And by the time it arrives, you're real set to do, because there are a lot, especially if it's international travel, there's some things you need to know. How many needles I need to take.
Right.
What immunizations I need to get, those sorts of things. What is customs and immigration like in these countries?
Right.
And, especially with American and Canadian travelers, you're not in Canada or the United States. They say back home, and I say, but you're not home.
Right. Right.
And you got to respect that.
You got to respect where you are. Yeah.
So, I say, because there's certain relaxation of certain rules in the U.S. don't mean that every country in the world has that same thing.
Right.
You get caught with drugs in Singapore, you're going to spend some years in jail.
Yeah, we saw that with the basketball player. Remember?
And now, the one in Russia, no. That was Singapore, Russia. The WNBA was Singapore.
I can't remember, but she got caught with something overseas, and
right.
You have to abide by their rules. Yeah.
And that's all of the proper preparation, you see.
Right. Well, Averell, we thank you so much for coming on tonight's show. You've given a lot of good information. It's at the end of 2022, and I wanted you to come on so you could prepare people for vacationing. Like you said, you're almost, depending on where you want to go, you're almost too late in 2023, but you never know. So with the information that is provided at the bottom of the screen, what is the best way for them to contact you? Is it email or your office number?
The email, the office number will be good, because you can leave a message.
Okay. So email or the office number.
I'm about to add another line, so
okay.
You'd be free to do that.
Okay. Well,
I respond to emails very quickly.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Well, thank you so much for being on tonight's show. You hold on. Don't disconnect. But I want to thank the audience for tuning in tonight to tonight's show. Get your travel plans together and call Averell. He will be more than happy to help you set your plans for 2023 and 2024 for you and your family. I am Tina Dawson, the host of tonight's show. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place. Good night, everybody.